The use of the arms for striking is essential in almost any martial art, and though specialized combat sports like boxing have explored this mode of attack to its very core, the sweet science is still evolving. But what can an ancient art like Pankration offer to a modern martial artist? Well, despite its age, the way it brings unique and intricate elements to these well established techniques that are otherwise set in stone will definitely surprise you. The analysis itself will mainly focus on ancient Hellenic pottery and reliefs, as surviving texts do not go into detail about any specific motions. Of course, I must preface this by stating that ancient pottery varied vastly in regard to the accuracy of the depictions. Some vases would be incredibly detailed and show a keen understanding of even the most subtle elements of combat, while others, well, you get the point. What's important is being able to filter out the drawings that were made on the fly and purely for decorative purposes, in order to gain a better understanding of the elaborate depictions that were meant to capture a piece of the reality of those Pankration bouts. If you appreciate this topic and the research it requires, I humbly ask that you support the channel either through Patreon, PayPal, or YouTube's Super Thanks to help me continue keeping this effort alive. Now, before I go into the details of the pottery illustrations, let's take a look at the standard techniques that we know of today, specifically the angles of attack available for striking in face-to-face or one-on-one combat. We can call these the vectors of attack, as each angle can be used for multiple strikes. Theoretically, these angles are infinite, but we categorize them into ranges occupied by certain techniques. In particular, we have the directs, the jab, the cross, and their variants like the vertical jab, the hooks, both high and low, and the uppercuts. In modern boxing, the hand strikes that are forbidden are the back fist, the hammer fist, and any aerial strikes. These, however, were not forbidden in ancient Greek boxing or Pankration, despite having different rule sets from one another, even when it comes to striking with the hands. The main differentiating factor for Pankration was the absence of Himantes, the ancient Greek version of boxing gloves. The reasoning behind the existence of these Himantes was twofold. One, to protect the fists of the boxer striking, and two, to protect the opponent from serious injury. Now, you might say the second reason is hardly effective, as gloves do allow for far more power to be placed in the strike itself, and I will agree with you. However, Philostratos shows us that limiting damages was their intent. He mentions that boxers would only use soft cowhide leather for their gloves, stating that pigskin was not allowed as they found it to be too harsh. Additionally, the gloves were filled with wool to make them softer. Hence, we can infer that there was at least an attempt to lessen the damage caused by the strikes, regardless of whether it was successful or not, which it really wasn't. Statues of boxers of that era show remarkable damage to the face and ears of the combatant, whereas statues of Pankratiasts are mostly unmarked. But how is this possible? Wouldn't a bare fist at least cause some additional superficial damage to the opponent, like the brutal cuts we see in modern-day bare-knuckle boxing? The answer to this lies in the way the hand strikes were dealt, as is shown in the depictions on the ancient Hellenic pottery mentioned in the introduction. There, we see that the majority of illustrations of Pankration show open hand strikes to the face rather than closed fists. This is the opposite of what we see in boxing illustrations, where all strikes were aimed towards the head of their adversaries. What's incredible about Pankration's palm strikes is the variance we see in the techniques used. Take for example this retreating jab, where it is clear that the side of the hand is used, known as the ulnar edge, providing more range for the strike to keep the opponent away. Then we have this amazing drawing of a lead hand direct strike drawn by Triptolemos the painter, where we see that the fingers are curled in order to keep them from bending backwards upon impact of a possible failed strike. In fact, these depictions show us just how much power was placed on these palm strikes, even for a lead hand attack. To illustrate this point, take the most common Pankration stance, where the weight is placed on the rear leg, the lead foot is elevated, the hips are facing forward, and the hands are held high in front of the fighter. To execute the lead hand palm strike we see here, the fighter must shift his weight, take a step forward with his lead, pull the rear hand back, twist his hips and rear foot, and extend the lead hand that is striking. This amalgam of motions translates to power, as the Pankratias is doing what we call sitting on his strike, meaning he is transferring the full weight of his body into the hit, and he can do this without wearing gloves because he is not attacking with a closed fist. The palm strike allows him to apply power without the fear of damaging his hand, and this particular strike appears to have been a popular technique because we see it in several different amphorae. In fact, we even see it miss. Other observable palm strike techniques include a cross, a vertical direct, a parried hook, and what appears to be evidence of a kidney blow having left a mark on the recipient. Additionally, we have closed fist techniques, including uppercuts, overheads, an aerial direct to the body, a hammer fist, and what appears to be a parried hook meant to hit with the ulnar edge of the hand. We also do have images of some pretty brutal elbow strikes, moving both upwards and downwards. The plethora of portrayed barehand palm strikes leads me to believe that there may have been a rule prohibiting Pankrátias from striking their opponent's head or face with the knuckles of a closed fist, and this rule may have applied to at least some events. If this is true and we include the rule orthopaia, which I mentioned in the 5 myths video, we can attain an understanding of why Pankrátias were far less wounded than boxers, and of course why there were no deaths in the several centuries of its competitions. Also, the variance of palm strikes provides a high skill ceiling for the techniques and gives us an excellent baseline in creating a modern rule set that can bring Pankration back to the forefront of combat sports and re-establish its rightful place in the modern Olympics. I'd like to very much thank my patrons that helped make this and future videos possible. The Pankrátias, Panthera Tigris, Nero Advena, Gist the Fish, Jabimothy Flimter, and Ash Snape, the heroes Whimsiest Tomcat and Caleb Kozeni, the Damon Patricius, and of course the Olympian David Shuley. Thank you very much, David, for the generous contribution. Once again, I really, truly appreciate everyone's support and will continue to do my best to provide the highest quality content possible with the means available to me. If you'd like to join us, the link to the Patreon page is in the description. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next video.